This is Matt Dunn, and you're listening to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
On Schreiber.
Sidearm whip, scores!
Now it's one. Padel scores! Hands off for Ravel, switches hands and scores!
Carly Omo are showing off those shifty skills.
Right off the bat, there's Lyle Thompson.
That was Matt Dunn that hopped in cage to make that save.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Pro Lacrosse Talk Podcast, the voice of Pro Lacrosse. I'm Hutton, he's Adam, and together we're bringing you interviews from all your favorite players and coaches, as well as news and analysis from all 4 professional lacrosse leagues. We're here with Matt Dunn, 2020 PLL Defenseman of the Year, back-to-back PLL Champion with the Whipsnakes Lacrosse Club, and defender with the Georgia Swarm. Matt, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
No, it's great to have you. Congrats on winning Defenseman of the Year award, as well as another PLL championship with the Whips. Before we dive into the pro game, I want to start a little bit with you growing up in Towson. What age were you first introduced to the sport of lacrosse?
Pretty young, I'd say. Probably, around 6, 7, 8-ish. I can't remember exactly when. Just growing up in Towson, like all my neighbors played, a lot of classmates played and things like that. I definitely was a little back and forth on my commitment to lacrosse, but I think I had my first stick when I was, 7, 8-ish. I was going to camps at that point.
That's awesome. Well, you stuck with it, right? Since you attended Loyola-Blakefield, had a great career there. Talk about playing there and having an awesome career. Yeah.
So even to go a little more earlier,
Sure.
did stick with it. Was definitely back and forth a little bit. It was fun to play, but lacrosse is kind of one of the sports that are harder to get into at a young age, just because, you have a stick and it's difficult to use if you're not, skilled with it and haven't spent time with it. So it can be frustrating. So I definitely, before I got to Loyola, spent a little more time focusing on basketball and football. And then kind of getting into Loyola, I got there in middle school. And just so many of my friends that I played other sports with there also played lacrosse. And kind of through that, by the time I got to, 6th, 7th grade, I actually made the switch from midfield to defense, which made a pretty big difference for me as far as my success and enjoyment in the game, because I really wasn't the most skilled midfielder out there. But yeah, so that made it fun for me. And then just being able to play with all my classmates. And obviously Loyola is known to have a strong lacrosse program, and a lot of the guys that went there were good players. So just being around those people made me enjoy the game more. So yeah, just continuing that path through Loyola definitely helped my advancement. Just being around people that worked hard and played the sport and grew up around the sport, having coaches that, really knew the game well, and going into a program that had a history of being successful made the idea of playing for that program really exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I moved, I'm actually in Towson now. I live in Towson now.
Okay. Oh, yeah, nice.
And I'm coaching at BL with Coach Farrell.
Awesome. Yeah.
So this was my first taste last season. Unfortunately, got cut short with the MIAA. Talk about that kind of rivalry. I'm from the Philly area, so public school lacrosse is big out that way. So
yeah,
it was my first experience of the MIAA this past season.
Yeah, and it's funny, I was in the same boat. I was actually back at Loyola this past spring helping to coach. And I was really excited about it. And same deal, a couple weeks in, get 3 games in, and then the season gets cut. So I feel your pain there. But yeah, it was just like even as a younger guy growing up and getting to Loyola in 6th grade, but going and watching some of the varsity games, and remember going to see them play, at Towson University or Johns Hopkins in a big championship or quarterfinal game, where you're watching guys like Mike Kimmel or Steele Stanwick or Joe Cummings and those guys, all play out their high school careers and, play for championships. And then the environment in those games was incredible, like going to a Loyola Boys Latin game when, Boys Latin had Travis Reed and Loyola had Steele. And I think it was that might have been at UMBC. One of the games, and it was just, I remember the environment was just packed. And I remember it just as a 6th or 7th grader thinking how cool that was. And so that was most of the lacrosse experience I knew. Mm-hmm. But definitely amongst all the schools around here, you always saw each school had their couple of years, whether it was Boys Latin for a couple, St. Paul's got a championship, Loyola, Gilman, Calvert Hall. But just going to those games and being there always made me really excited to eventually be that guy that got to play in those games. So that experience definitely made it more exciting for me to, continue playing, especially at a school like Loyola.
No, that's awesome. And then, you took your talents to Maryland, played under Coach John Tillman. Were your sights always on becoming a Terrapin, or were you kind of looking at other schools? I mean, what was the recruiting process for you like?
Yeah, I always, I always had a connection to Maryland. Just growing up, my parents went there. So I was always a Maryland sports fan. Mostly, honestly, growing up, mostly basketball, a little bit of football, but their football team was never that good. But, when I was in 8 or 9, Maryland wins the national championship in basketball.
Yep.
And my dad was a big basketball fan. So growing up, I would go to a couple games in College Park, and always watch them on TV. So I always was a Maryland basketball or Maryland sports fan, and just affiliated with the school. When it came time to get recruited, I wasn't that heavily recruited early on by some of the bigger schools, ACC or a couple Big Ten, but I was actually looking more Ivy League. It was where I was getting more interest and, kind of focusing on getting my SAT scores to a certain level and grades and all that. So for a little while, my interest was more in those schools, partially just because their interest was in me. So those were who was responding to my emails. After my junior year, or halfway through my junior year, I started to get some interest from more schools, some of the ACC schools, and Maryland reached out, and I was excited. And I thought, back in my mind, I thought I might want to go there, but I hadn't checked it out from a lacrosse perspective, meaning I haven't really met with the coaches and seen how the program operates behind the scenes. And then I went and visited in May of my junior year, so towards the end of our high school season. And it was the day before they went and played North Carolina in the quarterfinals. And that was actually the Brian Farrell fake flip game, if you remember that. So I went to their pregame practice for that. And I just loved it right away. I thought Coach Tillman was awesome. He really just kind of makes you feel important and welcome there. The culture and the team vibe, maybe it was just because they're about to go play in a quarterfinal game, but it was just the way the energy in the locker room and the film room and all that stuff and on the field was just, it was contagious and something that I wanted to be around. So I kind of knew the gut feeling right after I went there is I want to be here. And so after speaking with him, and they were saying, if you want to commit, there's, a spot for you here. I thought it out a little bit, but in my stomach, I knew that that's where I wanted to be. So shortly after that, I called Coach Tillman up and made my commitment.
Awesome. And you crushed it while you were there, right? You were a captain, 2-time All-American, went to 3 Final Fours, 2 national championships. Talk about kind of what made those teams so successful. Was it just that group of guys? Was it Coach Tillman? Was it a group effort? Kind of what really went into that success?
Yeah, there's I'm sure you could pin it to a number of things. I think the guys that were there for sure. The players ahead of me when I got there, I just remember being in awe at their skill, but also just their mindset and work ethic and the way they approach the game. Because I learned so much from those guys. And that combined with kind of the culture the coaching staff was setting, Coach Tillman has done a really good job with that in setting the right culture at Maryland. And so just a combination of being in an environment where, you have players that are so skilled, but they're very skilled, but they also, they're about getting the job done there. So I just remember walking in my freshman year, and the first practice we had was actually a red and white scrimmage. So basically the first day we were in pads, we just played a game against each other. And I just remember being a freshman, close defenseman, watching guys like Michael Earhart and Jesse Bernhardt run around the field and make these plays. And I was literally to myself, I'm never going to play here. I am watching them do that. I was I'll never be able to do those things. And just setting that and that was the first day shock, and you kind of you pick up to the speed of things over the course of the first couple months. It's a struggle for sure, but having a good coaching staff there and being willing to put in the time and having players like that set an example definitely puts in your mind hey, if I want to stick around and play here, I better figure out how to do that. And so that kind of lights the fire for you to be like, I got to figure out a way to get a lot better and keep up with these guys. So just that kind of competitive environment. I think a lot of the guys there play with that, like have that competitive nature of wanting to, whether it's earn a spot in the fall, a lot of times off season, your competition is with your teammates. Like you're not really thinking about like Virginia or Duke or anybody. You're thinking about like, how do I get my spot on the field? And you're competing with the other defensemen there. So there's a lot of that type of competition. That was just set by watching the guys you were going against and being like, how do I pick up to that? So that kind of lights the fire for everybody's out there, like kind of putting in the extra work to try to earn those spots.
And what did you do, during those off seasons to kind of, again, take your game to the next level each year as in college? Was there anything in particular that you kind of really worked on? Were there guys that you offensive guys that you kind of worked with to kind of hone your skills?
Yeah, it was a lot of different things. It kind of progressed throughout my time there. Each year, I think there was different things that I needed to focus on to get better. My freshman year there was a ton of things. Like any freshman, you come in, and we had Coach Kevin Connery came in at the same time. He was an awesome coach, but he was pretty like, I don't want to say cutthroat, but he was pretty intense in the fact that like he wanted to make you the best version of yourself, and so. As a freshman, you're probably nowhere close to the best version of yourself. So there's a lot of stuff to work on. And so for me with him, it was understanding like what is going on. So learning defense from a side that I never really learned it from before. And the amount of time you spend on defensive principles in college is just way more than anything you've ever done in high school. So your head starts spinning a little when you start throwing in like, when we go into this offense, here's what they do. Here's how we slide. Here's how we're going to play all the picks. Like, here's, our clears. Here's, all these different, here's our invert defense. Here's our man down. And you're just like, wow, like I just wanted to go running around and chase the ball. Like, so learning that. So spending a lot of time with him, just extra time, like watching film with him helped me a ton, getting the IQ part down. My thought going in was I was looking at some of these guys like, Mike Earhart, Gordon Murray, Jesse Bernhardt. I was like, they're just better athletes than me. So I was like, I need to figure out a way to get on the field. And it's probably not going to be by being faster than Goran or, have more athletic than Jesse. It's going to be finding a way to understand what's going on, see if I can be the off-ball guy, see if I can be a good communicator just to help the team play better. So that's kind of what I focused on. I think primarily is trying to fill that role as a freshman. And so I tried my best to just communicate a ton and learn, be the guy that understood what was going on. On top of that, Coach Connery, they always challenging us like, hey, like, I'd call you like slow or something, or like make you like, hey, you got to keep working on your footwork. Like it's it's getting better, but you got to keep working on that. So for me, I was like, I got to be able to cover the ball also. So I worked a lot on my footwork at first, and then just like understanding IQ and stuff. So I actually was able to get on the field my freshman year just by I think I showed them I could play the ball well enough, but I wasn't going to be like the cover guy, but also showing them that I could understand like what to do, when to do it, and just play smart. Because they had three close defensemen returning in Michael Earhart, Brian Cooper, and Goran, but they ended up moving Brian Cooper to short stick D midi right before the spring started because they felt comfortable that I could play a little bit down there. So I just got lucky, was able to play then. And then just throughout my career, I think that actually helped me a ton because I spent so much time early on trying to learn how to be an off-ball defenseman. And then as I play, like over the years, I kept getting like better feet and a little stronger, just doing a ton of jump rope and footwork drills. And eventually the time came when, Goran was out for his senior year. So my junior year, and now we needed a cover guy. And so that was the next transition, was going from being more of an off-ball focused defender to playing on the ball, which was a little bit of an intimidating. I was excited about it, but a little bit of an intimidating thing when like, people never really looked at me as the cover guy. So that was a big challenge for me at that point to really get my footwork down. I spent a ton of time just working on just, covering the ball, doing a ton of jump rope, a lot of footwork drills, watching a lot of film and understanding like how to play the ball and getting stronger. And then kind of going into my junior year, learning how to play that role a little more.
No, that's great. It's kind of cool to see how, you kind of took a bunch of different skills each year that you were in college and kind of, put it all together. And, that's kind of what led to you becoming Defensive Player of the Year this year. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about, I hate to bring up old wounds, but, you had a lot of success in Maryland. But, that championship kind of eluded you. You guys made it 2015, 2016. Unfortunately, didn't end the way you wanted it. Then you watched your teammates, at Maryland win in 2017 after you had graduated. You're also on that Dallas Rattlers team that lost in the MLL Championship in 2018. Then finally, 2019, new league, new team, the Whipsnakes. You're with a lot of your old teammates. What kind of led to you guys putting that all together and winning that championship in year one? And did that light a fire under you too, going into that season, knowing that you were going to play with a bunch of your old teammates and that, you had another shot at winning a championship?
It definitely does, because to that point, like we played with so many, or I thought were really good teams. And it's really difficult to get to that spot. But to get there that frequently and then lose, kind of like it stings differently. Cause you're kind of just like, damn, like we've been here so much. Like, can we just like get over this hurdle? Like, are we cursed or like, what is it? So it was actually, it was great seeing the guys that I played with bringing home the next year. Just because like you play with guys for that long and everybody kind of shares in the, what it takes to get there. And like, just as a program, getting over that hump was awesome. And especially so many guys that I knew so well doing it. But yeah, even moving forward, like kind of having, to your point, two in college, finishing off two in college and getting to one in the pros. I finished off my high school senior year with a championship loss. So it was like you kind of formed this like mental, storyline in your head. And you're like, damn it, can't we just get one? So winning that one last year, especially with those Maryland guys, was awesome, because not only did I feel like personally, like it was great to win one, but so many of those guys were there with me in the locker room that, didn't get one and were finished off our careers with back-to-back championship losses. So to do it at all was great, but to do it with those guys was extra special. And kind of just like, it was a big sigh of relief. Like, you don't get everybody, a lot of people ask, like, are you like getting them back? Like, no, you don't get them back. Like, what happened. College was college, and I don't get it back, but it's, it's still something that matters a lot to us. And like, whatever season you're in and whatever game you're playing is the most important one there. So, it's not like you kind of finish those college seasons and a part of you is like, that's the end of my lacrosse career. You don't really know what's going to happen. Like, the pro game has evolved so much in the last couple of years. You don't really focus on it that much when you're in college, because at that time, like the Division I's, the college lacrosse feels like everything. So finishing those games, partially to your side, you're like, that's it. I'll never get to play with these guys again. I'll never like get to compete with them again. Never get an opportunity to like win a big game with them. Like, all those things. Having that opportunity these last 2 years and succeeding in it has been a really awesome kind of, recent career trajectory and just experiences. Getting to those points, playing with those teams that are skilled, but then finally not just having great seasons, getting to the championship and bombing it again. Actually finishing those. It does feel really good to do it, especially with those guys.
Well, if there was a curse, you've certainly reversed it, right? You went a couple years without one, but now back to back, right? Talk about this in a little bit, this championship series. Obviously, it was a lot different of an environment, right, than year one in the abbreviated format, but obviously it didn't phase you guys. Talk about kind of how you prepared differently maybe for the sprint that was the PLL Championship Series.
Yeah, it was different. I think, the obvious big thing is it's short. So there's not a lot of opportunity you can make mistakes, but there's not a lot, like in a normal season, like you can have 2-3 bad weeks and you have weeks in between to correct things, or somebody gets a little banged up, or like you didn't come in shape. Like in a regular season, if you're on your best shape week 1 in May, well, like the championship's in September. So you can like figure out things. Like, you had to come in to this basically ready to go. But mentally, like, you don't have a lot of time you have 3 weeks there tops, and you don't have time to like figure out other issues and problems. So you got to come in pretty ready to go, and you got to be able to make adjustments on the fly. You got to be able to work with your teammates well. If there's like team problems, like those aren't going to get fixed in 2 weeks, spending that much time around each other. So you kind of have to just come in ready to go and be able to adapt on the fly. Kind of the weird feeling to it was you get into like halfway through your time there, you get a couple days of training camp, 4 regular games or whatever before the playoffs. And then you finish those, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, start to feel like I'm getting back in like game form, like getting used to like the speed and the contact and all of that. And you're like, well, the championship's in like 6 days. So we're pretty much already halfway done until next year. So it just all happened so fast. You know, I wasn't really sure how it was going to go from like a playing standpoint. I thought it went well. And it was difficult because one of the more difficult things is that you're getting mentally and emotionally prepared for games nonstop. And so for us, I think what was, you know, looking back at it, impressive is that not only did we win, but we won every game. And it's not easy to do that because the talent there is that everybody's basically good enough that if you have a bad enough day, anybody's good enough to beat anybody else. Mm-hmm. So what I was impressed with our group is just being able to, it wasn't always pretty, but we had enough guys each game that were, you know, mentally prepared enough to, you know, fight through a game. And we weren't always winning. Especially the last 2 games, you know, we cut it pretty close where the stakes were high. And I'm just, you know, really impressed and proud of our group to be able to, you know, be resilient enough to stick it through those games after, you know, just a pretty fatiguing series physically, mentally, emotionally of all those games in a short amount of time.
Yeah, no, and talk to me a little bit about that adversity you guys faced in that final championship game. You're down 6-3 heading into the fourth quarter, backs against the wall. What was the conversation like before you guys started that final quarter? You know, what did Coach Staggs say kind of in the huddle? And how do you guys think you guys were able to turn it around and, you know, get that second championship?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we throughout the series, we kind of had different games where different teams, parts of our team were balanced in different ways. So, you know, we had games where defense struggled more than our offense, and we had to pick it up defensively. I think that game in particular, we felt pretty good defensively. Mm-hmm. I think Blaze Reardon for the Chaos played incredible, particularly in the first 3 quarters, which made it difficult for our offense to get into a groove. And I think when you play a goalie like that, guys, you get a couple good looks. Like even like Zed had 2 or 3 really good looks early on and got stuffed on the crease. And so I think guys were kind of like just gripping their sticks tighter because they're like, how do we score on Blaze? So for, you know, I think for us going into towards the end of the game, like we were saying amongst ourselves defensively, like we feel pretty good. Like they weren't getting many good shots and they weren't doing anything. The couple goals we were giving up we're like, damn, like I was right there, should have slid and did it. Like we had no point where it was like our head spinning. And offensively, we were like, you know, we were getting some good looks. I think it was as nice once 1 or 2. I think Brad Smith made a big play off the end line where he got a goal and somebody else scored. John Halls had a good goal. And then once we started 1 or 2 went in, you could kind of just see body language change from those guys. So, I think our messaging was we don't have to do anything crazy different. Just like you guys are on the offensive end, you guys are so talented. Just be confident and, you know, don't stop shooting and don't overthink it. Because I think when you start playing a goalie that's so good, you shoot, but you like try to hit the top corner every time. And like whereas when you're comfortable, you just see a big patch of net and you just let it fly. Mm-hmm. So I just think, you know, throughout the game, just we tried to do a really good job of not being a team that imploded or like when things got tough, we started pointing fingers at each other. Or just even when things weren't going great, just showing that we had confidence in ourselves and our teammates and never making it like you guys better pick it up because you suck. Like just like being a very very supportive of them. And fortunately, you know, you had a guy like Zed score 4 goals in 2 minutes and everybody else kind of stepped it up and things worked out. But you know, from my standpoint, like we were like, if we can start scoring goals, like we feel pretty good about holding it down on our end. Mm-hmm. Kyle was playing well, and then Joe Nardella started winning faceoffs as soon as he started scoring. And I mean, you can't just undervalue how important he was for our championship the whole series of just getting the ball, allowing our offensive guys to make those plays.
That's great. Kind of speaking to those guys a little bit. Some of them, including Zed, was one of your teammates with the Georgia Swarm. He's off to Colorado now, but you re-signed with the Swarm. So let's talk a little bit about you kind of moved to the box game a little bit. What's it been like playing box at the pro level, and how's that really kind of helped your field game, and kind of vice versa maybe?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. It's been cool for a number of reasons. I think the game is so much fun. It's very fast paced. It's physical. The skill level is through the roof of what those guys can do with a lacrosse stick, and just it's really awesome being in a different lacrosse environment. So kind of like, I didn't really know much about box lacrosse growing up at all. It's kind of this whole hidden world of lacrosse that I never knew about. So there's these guys that, I never would have heard their name growing up that are some of the best lacrosse players in the world and insanely skilled. So for me, it's been cool just learning so much about the different, the other side of lacrosse, and seeing that whole environment, again, to travel to these places, whether it's places in upstate New York or Canada, that I never really would have gone to otherwise, and getting to go and meet these people and learn how to play a different style of lacrosse there very competitively has been really cool for me and my lacrosse journey. I think from like a player standpoint, it's just, there's a ton that like kind of can translate over between the games. I think it helps the O guys a ton. I think defensively, it kind of just, you play with a short stick. So that's new for me. Like I never played with a short stick since I was way younger. But it kind of just teaches you to, you have to be comfortable with the ball. So a lot of defensemen, most defensemen, I would say at like the professional level or collegiate level, probably played midfield until they were like, 12, 13, and then switched over. And so a lot of those guys, like, at least for a little while, had like a little bit of an offensive mindset, so feel comfortable enough clearing the ball and all that. But if you played close defense your whole life and never got like any offensive work or short stick work, like, you might just not feel comfortable running the ball over, or like running through traffic or making a play in transition. Whereas like an indoor game, every game you get the ball, like there's no space. You better just run and find a way to get it down the floor to somebody else. So I think it's good for that reason. It makes you, as a long pole that in field might be able to get away without having to handle the ball much, aside from throwing it over or throwing it to a midi. You have to learn how to be comfortable and make decisions with the ball on your stick. Not that I'm, great at that by any means, but I'm definitely better than I think I would have been otherwise, just being forced to make those decisions. And then, just from like a communication standpoint, it's just things happen so fast in the indoor game. Pick play is huge. If you're not able to like listen to what your teammates are saying to you or communicate to your teammates, you're just going to get destroyed. Literally, like the picks, they'll run full speed and blow you up in the back, and you'll just end up on your hands and knees if you're not sharp with that. Whereas the field game's a little more one-on-one, especially from a defensive standpoint. Picking's becoming a lot bigger and outdoor, but still, like, being big and athletic and being able to cover the ball is a big deal. In the indoor game, there's not a ton of one-on-one matchups at all. It's almost all two-man pick play. So being able to speak through that and communicate through that, I think, is a really challenging skill in indoor that it only helps your communication and all that in outdoor.
No, that's great. And, going off of that too, you've kind of developed your skills as a player. You're also kind of teaching the next generation. You're doing a lot with First Class Lacrosse, run by Deemer Class, your former Loyola-Blakefield teammate, I believe. How's it been coaching with First Class, and what was it like having to adapt to teaching online since, the pandemic kind of threw a wrench into like in-person training? How was that adjustment? Yeah,
it's been good. I love, I really enjoy teaching and coaching. I loved what Deemer's been doing on the offensive side. And I always thought I was lucky just to have gotten such great coaching. I got really good coaching at the high school level, and then at the collegiate level, I just, I feel like I got so much better from my coaching that I received. So I think especially, for me, like I was like I said, one of those guys that I never was able to just show up, and I wasn't going to show up at Maryland and be on the field. I had to learn how to get better to play. And so I feel that, there's a lot of value in being taught how to play the right way. And it's difficult for players to get that coaching all over the place. So it's exciting for me to get the opportunity to work with a lot of guys and teach them. The digital stuff, it's good, but it's challenging. Like anybody that coaches knows, like you want to be there in person. The instruction, it's better, it's more fun, it's easier to demonstrate things and show people in person. The digital was a nice adjustment because we had to. I still think the in-person stuff is the bread and butter, but it kind of showed us that there's still ways to interact with people, especially with technology today. That might not be perfect, but we had to it's a lot of trial and error. We did a lot of getting creative, but there's ways to add value to players. And it all depends on the type of player you're working with. Some guys can sit in front of a computer and pay attention and talk to you. Some guys just it's not for them. It's just different learning styles in school. Some guys need somebody there to get in their face and tell them exactly what to do. But it was cool because I actually got the opportunity to work with guys that I would never have worked with otherwise, in Seattle and California and all those areas, just by hopping on a computer. Now, I might have preferred to do it in person, but I would have never been able to travel around in person, have as many interactions with those guys. So it was a little frustrating trying to figure out the best way to do it, but it was pretty cool getting the opportunity to get creative, do some digital stuff, and work with guys in all different areas and kind of build a little bit wider of a base geographically than we would have otherwise.
No, that's great. And I think you guys are doing a great job, growing the game into areas that maybe aren't, as familiar to lacrosse. So I think you guys are doing a great job with that. We're going to take a quick break here, word from our sponsor and affiliates, and then we'll dive into our 5 and 5 segment. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Pro Lacrosse Talk Podcast. Today I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Anchor. We've been using Anchor for the Pro Lacrosse Talk Podcast since the very start. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and better yet, it's free. They allow you to easily record and edit your podcast, and once it's published, they send it out to all the major networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. They also connect you with advertisers so you can start making money from your podcast right away. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast today, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Today I also want to talk to you about our affiliate, Players Academy. Are you looking to improve your lacrosse game from home? Players Academy, started in part by multiple Hall of Fame lacrosse players including Jay Jalbert, currently offers premier lacrosse online video instructional training courses from 2 of the top players in the world today, Atlas attackman Rob Pennell and Archers midfielder Tom Schreiber. You can learn how to run the 2-man game, perform Rob Pennell's signature question mark dodge, attack from X, work the island, and more in these fun-to-watch lacrosse courses. We've also teamed up with Players Academy to offer a special $25 off your Players Academy course of choice. Simply use the code PLT at checkout and start learning from the best in the game today. All right, so welcome back. Now we're going to dive into our 5 and 5 segment. I'll ask you 5 lacrosse questions, Matt. Adam will take it over with 5 off-the-field questions. So to start, I want to know, do you have any pregame superstitions or routines?
No, I don't really. I don't really do headphone stuff. I like being in the locker room with the guys. So I don't really have any type of stick taping ritual or things I do. I try not to get locked in that because I've actually found if I get too, superstitious with anything, if for some reason I can or don't do it, I don't want to mess things. I guess I'm superstitious about not being superstitious because I don't want to lock myself into anything where oh no, I forgot the tape today, and now I'm in my own head for the whole game. I like listening to the music that's playing in the locker room. I like being around the guys and kind of I do spend some time just sitting by myself trying to get mentally running through scenarios that might happen in the game and what the game plan is and kind of how we're going to execute. But other than that, just kind of relax and get ready to play.
Awesome. And then which of your rival teams, and really any league, can be NLL or PLL, or even, maybe in college, but did you enjoy playing against the most or that you currently enjoy playing against?
I'll just go PLL because it's kind of the current one. Mm-hmm. I think the Redwoods have kind of proven a good game for us the last 2 seasons, be it, championship last year to opening game this year to semifinals this year. I just think they're a team similar to us that kind of has like a college contingency to it. So them being like a Notre Dame base adds a little extra fire to it because, you know, we would play all those guys in college. I've been playing against a lot of those guys, you know, for 8+ years now. I just think they're a team that plays really hard. So those games are always competitive. And then I think an obvious one is just going back to college. And we always had really big games against Hopkins. Just the Maryland Hopkins games were always cool. Just the history behind it. We always played talented teams there, and the games were always battles. And like it was always fun getting to go play at like a Homewood Field. Being from Baltimore, but that environment was just awesome. And those were games that kind of always like I'll always remember.
No, yeah, for sure. We're hoping that we get to see Atlas Whips in Baltimore next year as well. And unfortunately,
I'm hoping so. I love that one. That was great.
Adam and I were both at Baltimore last year, and it's just a great environment. So hoping we can get back there again.
Yeah.
Number 3, what has been your favorite venue to play lacrosse at? Going off of the Homewood thing, is it Homewood or is it Bird Stadium?
I think I loved playing. I just think I loved playing at Homewood. Maybe it's just for me being from Baltimore that like I remember growing up in that area, and it's just especially we played there one time my senior year in college. We played there like 3 weeks in a row because we played Hopkins their regular season, and then the Big Ten tournament was there, and we won like all 3 games. So we actually started calling it Birdwood. And so at that point, like we loved playing there. We never, some schools like you might not like going to as much, but for us, we loved playing there. It was an awesome environment. We were having some success. I love playing at Bird because, it was home for us, and just being in Maryland was so great. I would just say from a facility standpoint, like when you play in Bird, you're playing in a pretty big football stadium where even if you have 10,000-12,000 people, it still feels like there's still some emptiness there. Just from a playing environment, playing in a stadium where if you have 10,000-12,000 people and it's packed is it's pretty special. So, I could make the argument for either there. I was just, playing in Bird in college and then playing there last year that was a really exciting game too. Just having all my family and friends being able to come to the game, getting a win and a nice night game there was awesome.
No, that's great. And then number 4, who's a teammate that you kind of leaned on as a mentor during your career? It could be, a teammate from college or even the pros.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure I have a number of them. From college, I think guys like Mike Earhart and Jesse Bernhardt, I kind of, were always like guys I looked up to that were 2-3 years ahead of me. Jesse spent time as like the volunteer assistant at Maryland also after he graduated, so he was around for a little. So looking at those guys professionally, getting the opportunity to still play with like some of those Maryland guys has been great. But even when I was, playing in Rochester, kind of my transition to the indoor game had a lot to do with those guys. There was a pretty good leadership group on that team. Like, Joel White, Mike Manley, Jordan McIntosh, John Galloway, those guys. Those were the guys that actually got me into playing indoor because Jordan McIntosh was the captain of the Sworn. Joel White played for the Sworn. John Rannigan at the time was playing for the Sworn. Mike Manley played in Rochester, I believe. So all those guys were playing indoor, and I would ask them questions about it. And they were kind of guys that were, I would say for my transition to the indoor game, they were kind of guys that I leaned on a lot and were just like such great guys. And, being open to being a mentor, talking me through experiences, helping me get tryouts and all that stuff. So I'd say, I had my guys at Maryland and then a number of guys I played with in the pros that I was lucky to be on great teams with great mentors that were, willing to help me out.
No, that's awesome. And then more of like a vanity thing and, kind of a weapon of choice thing. What is your current stick setup in terms of stringing, head? What are you rocking these days?
Yeah, I've been using the East Coast Dive stuff. So I used their DNA head this past season. Those guys, they've just been great to me. They went to Loyola-Blakefield, so I've known them. I didn't really know them then. They're a little ahead of me, but I've gotten to know them post high school and college, and they've just been awesome from, they're local. So they'll let me use their facility in Towson to go, go do some work shooting, run some lessons and things like that. And they'll just like basically if I need a head, they string it up and get it to me pretty quickly. And I like the way they've strung. For me, one of the big things is I don't string my own heads. I've tried before. I never like the way they turn out. So having somebody locally that can consistently string a good head, as well as actually them having the head, it's been great. So I stick with those guys. They got me the DNA, just like a mid-level pocket with like a U in it kind of thing. Has worked for me. I'm pretty low maintenance when it comes to my stick.
That's great. Yeah, I actually played with Mike and Greg in college at E-Town, so I know
Okay.
pretty well. They're awesome.
Awesome dudes. So I just enjoy being around them too. So I've liked working with them.
That's great. Awesome. So moving to the off the field questions. I know lacrosse takes up probably most of your time, right? But what are some kind of hobbies or activities you enjoy when you're not on the field?
Yeah, good question. It's probably changed in the last 6 months with COVID stuff, but I love playing pickup sports. So we play I haven't played basketball in a while, but I used to play a lot of pickup basketball. We play a lot of 3x. So we have like a little group in Baltimore of guys that either played pro, used to play, or played college. So get fiddlestick goal, go on a basketball court, use short sticks and tennis balls, and play some like 3-on-3 lacrosse. In the last like couple months, we've been able to like get outside and do that. And that's been like a really fun kind of pastime. Other than that, just traveling around, doing training stuff, like to travel, and then just kind of hanging out with, friends in the area.
Nice. Number 2, who's a player in a different sport other than lacrosse that you really enjoy watching right now?
Ooh, right now, good question. I'm trying to think. Probably a basketball guy. I watch a lot of lacrosse, so it's like, I think growing up, I used to be a big like basketball fan because that was my main sport. So I would watch Michael Jordan highlights all the time, or like I would watch Kobe live, and those were the guys that I would go watch and then go on the driveway and try to do stuff to emulate. Trying to think right now if there's like a guy I really like watching. I like watching. I used to just I liked watching like Russell Westbrook play just because I just thought he played so hard and he was so explosive and dynamic. I'd be lying if I said I constantly watch the NBA right now and watch him play a lot. But there's a couple of guys like that I just think are so athletically impressive that and they mentally they just play so hard. Watching a guy like him, make plays on both ends of the floor and just play with such passion, I think it's a cool thing to watch. Yeah, for sure. So are you a Wizards fan if you had to pick a squad, or is that being from Baltimore? I guess yeah. When I was younger, I used to go to some games. I used to have a Gilbert Arenas jersey. Nice. Yeah, so go to those games, but I haven't in the last couple years. I haven't really. Gotcha. They haven't had that much success. Maybe if they were winning, I'd hop on the bandwagon. But I remember a couple years ago watching them. The Eastern Conference was struggling for a while, so watching them play the Celtics, and they almost won the series. Yeah. But I wouldn't really call myself a Wizards fan. However, if they pick it up in the next 5 years, you might catch me on the bandwagon. That's awesome. Number 3. I know it's probably not something you're doing right now, but favorite spot to vacation? Man, consistently. So my parents have a house in Bethany Beach in Delaware, and that's where we would just go on family vacation pretty much every year. I would have to say that's probably my favorite to go to, just because it's kind of that area, it just has a lot of memories there, kind of home away from home. Easy enough trip. Well, I just love being at the beach too. And so that's probably an easy one. I'm trying to think. I do like traveling, so I like balancing the beach. I also like even just being in Utah, we didn't get to see much there, but I do also just like being out, and it's awesome just seeing mountains in different parts of the country. So, I'll go with Bethany Beach, but there's a ton of areas that I really like to go to and check out. You can never go wrong with the beach, right? That's never a bad choice, right? No. Number 4. What's your favorite meal? Do you prefer to dine out, take out, or cook at home? Yeah, favorite meal, probably go I've gone back and forth with this one. I do like a really good Italian meal is great. Like a good chicken parm, I think it's probably, I'd have to probably pin down that as my favorite meal. I like for that, I would dine out. I don't make a good chicken parm consistently. I do enjoy cooking though, so we have, especially during quarantine, we've done more of that. I don't really cook much fancy, kind of stick to the basics. But I like the process of like cooking. It's kind of like one of those things, just a thing you get into kind of mindlessly, and it's an enjoyable thing. It's nice feeling able and competent enough in the kitchen to make some of my own food. So
that's awesome. Go down to Little Italy and go get some amicis. Did you ever go down to Little Italy?
Yeah. That's a good one. And then I worked in Annapolis for a couple of years. And one of my good buddies and ex-teammates, Nick Manis, who played for the Bayhawks there, lives in the area. And I would go spend a lot of time with them. And they go to a place called Carpaccio right off West Street. Yeah. And that's a really good chicken parm. So that's probably one of the better ones I've had, or in the area at least.
Good stuff.
The Long Island guys will tell you otherwise, but
yep, absolutely right.
Stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then my last question, especially with quarantine, people have been binging a lot or reading a lot. What's a book or TV show maybe right now that you're watching or reading you'd recommend?
Yeah, I wish I could say I was reading more than I was right now. I've been meaning to. I will soon. I've been watching recently. I've been watching Breaking Bad. Okay. So I watched the first 3 or 4 seasons, like my freshman year in college, and the 5th season hadn't come out yet at that point, and I just never. It's one of those things where like you wait another year, and I just never watched it. Yep. So I'm rewatching now. I'm only the 3rd season, but it's kind of nice because it was so long ago. I kind of forget everything that happened. So I'm just watching Breaking Bad again. It's been awesome. But yeah, I've probably been watching a little more TV than I historically would. I go through phases, so I'll knock out Breaking Bad, then maybe I'll try to get back into some books.
I'm kind of the same way. Like right now, I'm just starting to get back into listening to audiobooks on my commute. And I think that's part of it is now that I'm going back into the office, but it was like before. Yeah. I probably listened to 20, 30 books in, 2018. And then like last year, I didn't listen to really any. So I'm kind of the same way with the phases. That wraps up our 5 and 5. Final question we like to end on, Matt, with all our guests is, what is some advice that you have for a young player looking to one day play lacrosse professionally?
Yeah, I would say a couple pieces, but I think a young player, I think you just have to enjoy it, really. I think, play a lot of sports. I think there's so much carryover between one sport to another, and I think as a younger player, it allows each sport to be refreshing so that you're enjoying, playing. If you're a younger guy and you are tired of playing lacrosse, you're going to have a tough time playing throughout your whole life because at some point you get to college and all that, like it does get pretty close to like a full-time job and you don't get the opportunity to play those other sports. So I would say really enjoy playing it. Make sure you're having fun, find fun ways to get better. So like even playing like pick up with your friends, like the 3x stuff, or get creative with games and ways you practice. I think it's great to have a balance of like really hard disciplined practice, but then just fun ways to not feel like you're practicing playing pickup and making a game out of things is a good way to do it. If you're not enjoying playing at a younger age, then I don't think you'll progress the way a lot of people that really enjoy and have a passion for going out and picking up the stick and doing their shooting or playing catch will. So I would think find ways to make it fun, make it interesting. Keep your stick in your hands, have some patience with it because, like I mentioned earlier, I was in and out of it younger just because it is difficult until you can, catch and throw and shoot where you want to shoot. It's not that fun of a sport when you can't catch and throw it. So have some patience, work on your stick skills, but try to have fun while you're doing it.
No, I think that's some great advice, especially for young players too, that experience so much burnout, to just make sure you're enjoying the game. And I think that's some important advice. Well, Matt, we appreciate you coming on. I'll let people know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Matt_Dunn33, Twitter at I'm Done Tweeting. Those are the big ones for me. Yeah. I don't tweet that much, but probably post a little more on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt, for joining us. We appreciate it. Again, congrats on the 2020 PLL Championship, and best of luck with the Georgia Swarm this upcoming season as well.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Today, I also want to talk to you about our affiliate, Streaker Sports. Streaker Sports features an array of throwback t-shirts and apparel, including t-shirts of defunct major indoor lacrosse league teams such as the Baltimore Thunder, New York Saints, Syracuse Smash, and Boston Blazers. They also provide custom uniforms and shorts that are perfect for your rec team's upcoming lacrosse tournament or season. Better yet, we've teamed up with Streaker Sports to provide you with a special discount. Simply visit streakersports.com and use the code PLT to save 15% on your order today.